welcome to Warhammer Workshop. My name is Amy, and I am here, as always, with JF. JF, hello.
Hi. Hello.
So we're going to hit the ground running because we've got a fair amount to talk about this week.
Well, we can start by a quick apology for not mentioning that last week in our news show. We forgot to mention the release of Blood, Teeth, and all sorts of gubbins. I cannot keep it's Shootas, Blood, and
It
Teeth.
is Shootas, Blood, and Teef.
Which came out, and it's hilarious because this game is a big deal to you and me as avid orc players and orc enjoyers. That we didn't even so much as mention. Like, we talked about the game, and it's a game that looks rad for all sorts of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
It's extremely retro for those who have not seen the trailer for it. It's got very typical 80s heavy metal music.
It's very good. It's very
so
excellent.
good. The trailer starts with a looted not Land Raider, but Thunderhawk crashing into the ground, and then it's just orcs.
So I started it, and I am going to have to give keyboard and mouse a try because on controller it's dual stick shooter, at which I am straight trash. So I'm gonna see if keyboard and mouse treats me a little better, but it is fantastic. It's so good.
It looks to me like the kind of game that is just a very dumb Mario Party level adrenaline rush.
It is.
And I know it's not comparable gameplay style, but you know what I mean? Like a game that serious gamers abstain.
Yeah, it's manic. I don't want to give away too much, but the first boss fight is during a metal concert. So that's great. Yeah, it's real dumb, and I enjoy it an awful lot, and I can't wait to play more.
This is one of the things I absolutely adore about the 40K hobby is the fact that you can have on one hand something as serious and dark and gritty as the Horus Heresy and all the horror of the 41st millennium as seen through like Drukhari raids and Tyranid invasions, and then flip the script completely and you're still in the same setting, and somehow it's heavy metal parties with orcs just going on a rampage, and it's all the same thing. It's just the variety is mindless. So yeah, no, sorry we didn't mention that. Yeah, it's a cool thing.
They've been putting out the comics for it on the Warhammer community page, and I will say that the hair squig does feature heavily in the game. It's very good.
It does?
Oh yeah, no, it's important.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, no, it's important.
I mean, look, I'm all in favor of this universe growing, and if that means we get more lore about such fabulous things as a hair squig, I am super comfortable with that.
Yeah.
All right, so that's one piece of news we missed.
So this week's releases, we're getting the rest of the League of Votann stuff. Everything else that they already announced is coming out. Along with, I don't know if they'd talked about the Combat Patrol prior to now.
I don't think they've mentioned a Combat Patrol prior to now. I don't see it listed into the stuff that's coming out. I don't know if it's mentioned. No, it is.
Yep.
But
it's in this week, and it has the it has Uthar the Destined, 10 Hearthkin, 3 of the Pioneers, 5 Berserks, and
that's it.
That's it. But it's good. That's a good Combat Patrol.
Yeah, no, it's a very good Combat Patrol. The only problem is that you're getting another Uthar the Destined, which is also those as a Cal. But the problem is you can only have 1 Cal per detachment. And
yeah, but if you didn't get the army box.
If you didn't get the army box, but you can still get them. But I don't know. I'm always kind of like on the fence with these things but what if you did get the army box?
It's still okay. I mean, it's one guy, and so like I built mine as a generic call, so maybe I would build this one as Uthar. You know what I mean? And then I can swap them out as needed.
what I'm saying is, yes, it is. It's not a catastrophe,
Yeah,
but there are other HQ options that could have been tossed in instead of yet another call, which
sure.
would have felt like a better tack on. Like you've got the army set, and then you get a but combat patrol, and it merges better than having that one fig that can be a little redundant. That's all I'm saying. It's not bad. It's just
No.
not perfect.
So, G Dubs did send us a lot of these goodies. And so I took the liberty of putting together and painting the Grimnir and the Brockhair Iron Master and all of his little buddies. I basically built every kit that came with little buddies except for the what are they, mole mines or whatever. I haven't built those yet.
The berserks.
I love them. They're gorgeous. All of these models, they're so detailed and so clean and
So I've started working on a Sagittar, which I have to say I am not building as a Sagittar because, as I've made clear, I am not doing League of Votann.
yeah.
I am instead converting it to be a looted, not quite. I'm going to use it as an extra ridge runner for my Gene Stealer Cult army.
Right.
So we're just replacing the driver and like probably have some spray painted kind of graffiti with like Gene Steer logos on it and make it look, switch out some weapons. It's actually going to be a very easy conversion. But one of the things I'm bringing that up is because I'm building the Sagittar. And if you look at the image of the Sagittar, you'll notice that you have kind of two different colors of paint schemes.
Yeah.
You've got like the generic chassis, and then you've got these armor plates. And anybody that likes to paint and mask and do fancy things will be absolutely thrilled to know that the extra armor pieces are all separate.
Ooh.
You can paint your Sagittar and then paint those pieces separate, assemble all that at the end. Done.
Love it.
Clean.
Love it.
Yeah, I am
big fan.
Over the moon. I'm not sure because like I said, I'm converting the weapons, but it also looks like the top weapon, the turret weapon, can be switched out.
Excellent.
Because it's not like you have one mount and then you have to fit all three options on it. Every weapon has its own mount.
They've gotten better about that. Because like for a while, right, they'd give you like the one mount, right? Thinking that you would somehow buy more models. But then what everybody did was just get really creative with magnets and plastic art. And so they were like, okay, fine. Here, just take all the mounts.
Very often also just say like, hey, Kevin, can I use like this is not a last cannon, it's like something else.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
People don't care. Like if it's for friendly games, it never mattered anyway.
Right.
So, I'm not going to expect you. Oh yeah, no. I want you to spend another $100 on Land Raider because you're not using the pintle thing that's on it right now.
Yeah.
It's dumb. I'd much rather have the kits allow us that flexibility.
So we've also got some Horus Heresy on the way. We have the Demos Pattern Predator. And then a few selections from Forge World, Corswain, Paladin of the Ninth Order.
Oh boy, don't I not care.
Yeah.
No, I've got nothing against it. I don't care because how do I say? Look, you get to the dessert table and sometimes there's chocolate mousse and right next to it there's pecan pie. It's like chocolate mousse is great, but pecan pie is better. And after Corswain is a bunch of Death Guard things.
Yeah.
So I am way more thrilled about that.
So there's the Death Guard Legion Praetors, which all the Legion Praetors look spectacular. As well as their upgrades and the Blood Angels Mark 6 upgrades. We finally
Couldn't care less about the Blood Angels. They look nice. Like I'll give them that. Like those helmets actually look really cool for the Blood Angels.
Yeah.
I'm just over the moon that I'm finally gonna get all my little upgrade kits for my Death Guard. So I can actually
we finally just today saw the upgrade kits for my Night Lords. And that's exciting, finally, so that I will be committed to a Legion finally.
Well, that's the question now. Like, are you committed? Is it over?
I mean,
is the last nail in this coffin?
I think so. I they've grown on me. The heads are
Their
cool.
helmets look cool, and I
Yeah.
like that they didn't go full Halloween on them.
Yeah.
Like they all have a little bit of a skull on the helmet, which is great, but only one of them has the
The bat wings,
the bat
which
wings.
are great, and they're great in small doses.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think that's the nail in that coffin. So that's great. Yeah, and so that's it for releases. It's a ton of stuff, but it's all very concentrated in what it is.
yes, it's receiving the League of Votann, like the balance of what wasn't in the army set, kind
Mhm.
of makes you realize that the army set was a great box, but
Yeah.
also a very limited selection
Yeah.
compared to what the army has to offer.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like it's a
Yeah.
good release. Like they did a good job.
I mean, for a first swing at bat for this army, they really pulled out all the stops.
I think I've talked about it before, but they used to like talking to like Jez Goodwin and stuff on the Warhammer Community Podcast, and they would talk about things like every time you put out an army, you have to act like this is going to be your one shot, but also you gotta hold stuff back just in case, and so it's like it's a delicate balance.
And listen, I've talked to a few people who've gone through the fluff for the League of Votann now, and they've all come to, like, whenever I mention it, they all come to roughly the same conclusions I have. They mention gunships a lot. I'm just saying, there's room for more. And if ever there's an army that could get like a subterranean assault vehicle, it probably would be them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? Oh, so we've also got the Rogal Dorn battle tank has been announced.
I love that they're leaning in to the Primarch naming convention for Imperial Guard. I'm sorry, Militarum Astartes. No, that's not it.
Astra Militarum, baby.
Astra Militarum. What the hell would be an Militarum Astartes? Do you smell toast? Anyways, I love that they're leaning into it because it kind of opens the door. In maybe 20 years, they'll pull out something else. Yeah. I don't know, maybe a Reboot Guilliman other tank.
Yeah.
I've had thoughts about what a Fulgrim battle tank would look like, but
I believe that my thoughts on the matter involved a gif of RuPaul with hoses spraying glitter. I thought it seemed right.
You did send me that, and that was exactly what I expected. It's a tank it's received a little bit of criticism. It's getting the same criticism as some of the repulsor tanks that we've seen for the Space Marine a few years back, in the sense that could you stop putting so many guns? There's just so many guns.
There are a lot of guns, but
there's a lot of guns.
But also, why not? I mean, what else have they got?
I'll tell you exactly why not.
Okay.
Why maybe one less gun.
Okay.
One less gun, just so they have enough room for that poor dude
that's standing on outside.
The back. Because that's the thing. Like, you've got the main turret weapon, which can be two things, and one of them is, I kid you not, twin battle cannons.
Yeah.
Then there's one or two hull mounted, like there seems to be a hull mounted autocannon and some other hull mounted gun. And then you've got the pintle guns, the sponsoon guns, and a pintle mounted weapon that can be fired by some poor bastard that has to stand outside the armored tank.
I just picture them all inside doing rock, paper, scissors.
Just short straws. No. Well, no, you can't picture them all inside because there's clearly no room.
It's all ammunition.
Because of all the guns.
It's just ammo.
It's a big tank.
Yeah,
it's a massive tank. It looks like it has a lot of options. Like there's a lot of guns, but also lots of options for these guns. Like those sponsoons look like they have melta options and maybe flamer options. There's this Gatling gun that you can have as the hull mounted gun. It's just a lot.
A lot.
It's massive. Like someone actually took a comparative shot, like, for the size and sort of Photoshop to see what it looks like next to a Leman Russ, and Leman Russ looks like a freaking Vespa next to it. It's just so tiny. It's a Mini Cooper next to a freaking Silverado. It's insane. So it looks like a
Uh,
tank that sits a bit between your standard Leman Russ and a Bane Blade. So I guess it does fill that kind of gradient in size.
sure. That doesn't mean it doesn't
Um,
seem a
the
bit
question
much.
becomes at that point is where does it sit as far as its battlefield role is concerned? Because the
Mm,
description does mention like, oh, it's fast enough to keep up with Leman Russ. So like my initial opinion was like, well, maybe the Leman Russ will be like the faster tank to get into the strategic position because it's
right.
smaller and all that, and this is more like of your lumbering behemoth that you just have sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
And apparently that's not the case. So where does a squadron of Leman Russ stand if you can have one of these things on the battlefield instead?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's one of the problems that Games Workshop might be running into in the future by trying to fill out some of the armies is that you wind up with a little bit of redundancy. Like you
Right.
want to have these new models that look cool, but at the same time, do you end up just making some of the other models and units useless by doubling up on their battlefield role?
I mean, it, yeah, like that's definitely a possibility, but it also is maybe like, even if you do have redundancy, right? If you're like, well, I've already got this, so I'm just going to use this guy. Um or if you as a player are like, I love that the way that new one looks, I'm going to get that one. You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
you've got a point there, like because this looks really like. I mean, I could get two Lemanuses, or I could get one Rogal Dorn, which is essentially the same thing
Right.
because it's got
So many
the
guns.
same so many guns,
Right.
so many guns
Mhm.
everywhere. It's a cool looking tank. I love the way they've done the threads on it. They
Yeah.
look like they've got a bit like more a little bit more of a complex shape than what we're used to see like in Chimeras and Lamanrusses or even Land Raiders. It's cool. It's cool looking. I mean, if I was an Imperial Guard player, I'd be over the moon at that being an option. Especially like if you've been into Astral Militarum for any length of time, you've probably got enough Lamanrusses
Yeah.
anyways.
We haven't seen anything. We haven't seen much about army building outside of, yeah, you can take Cadians and Catechins and all of these things together. Other than that, we haven't seen a whole lot of army building, right? Like we haven't seen what a tank heavy Astra Militarum army might look like. We don't know
That's true. I
yet.
mean, there's possibilities for certain builds or certain armies, or just I don't know. Maybe you can, if you have one of these tanks, then you can have a unit of Leman Russes without taking up a heavy slot. I
Right.
don't know. It's
Yeah, we
just a
don't know.
lot of options.
Whew.
I mean, it's the guard.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we
Wow.
will find out soon. Um,
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah.
I'm not gonna play him, but man, there's a possibility of painting an entire army set loom.
um, you wanted to talk about this week's um rumor engine.
I want to talk about this week's rumor engine because this is clearly a Xenos claw, and it is a Xenos that, without a bit of lore and imagination, is hard
Yeah.
to spot. Like, I guess it could be demon, but probably not because it doesn't have any of that mutation aspect to it. It's definitely not Tyrannid. It
No.
doesn't look Tyrannidy.
No.
Maybe it's an Amble.
Yeah.
But one of the big theories is a lot of people are looking at it and saying that looks like a HRUD. And when we say a
Oh.
HRUD, we don't mean the standard third edition core book little space skaven like
Which is a
little rat,
shame.
which is a shame because those are the cool ones. But more of the
Hmm.
jointless spaghetti limb images that we've seen in other lore since then.
Yeah.
This looks cooler than the images that we've
Oh
seen,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Totally.
I'm really not sure about spaghetti limbs. I don't like it. I hope
Well,
that's not what they'll do.
yeah, cuz I mean, if you look at those images, right? Like they are kind of, I don't know, some of them have sort of a seaweed monster thing going for them. And
Yeah.
then the other ones sort of have like, they're kind of knuckle draggy, which that guy doesn't quite look like it would do that. But
And
maybe.
And the thing is, what's interesting, like keeping this in perspective to what Games Workshop has done by bringing back some older lore and some older creatures or things, is updating the look and the role that these races have in the galaxy and in the lore. Like you look
Mm-hmm.
at the League of Votann replacing the squats and basically kind of reinventing the space dwarf.
Right.
And there's nothing that really ties Games Workshop to the idea of having the knuckle dragging spaghetti
No, no,
limb
no, no,
swamp monster.
no, not at all.
What I would like to see
Uh-huh.
is these being a let's say this kind of creature being the rat ogre to the third edition core book version of like that
Mm-hmm.
being to the what we actually see the smaller troops, what the rat ogres are to the Skaven.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and who knows what they could do with like the biology or even the culture of such like a faction like that. And I
Right.
wouldn't hate seeing that as a new faction, even if it's like in a year and a half.
So, I will say that maybe it's not necessarily a whole faction, or maybe not yet, because we do have the potential for some one-off 40K stuff in the near future, or the comparatively near future, the GW near future.
Yes,
Which is, I feel like it's
soon.
about a 3-year block that we could be talking about. Because they did also announce this week, right on the heels of the previous expansion, the final expansion to Curse City, which is again another box, no models, called Nemesis. I'm having a lot of feelings about this one.
I have emotions.
So we're coming off of like let's go back for a second to the previous iteration of Warhammer Quest, which was Blackstone Fortress, which
Blackstone
had
Fortress.
I mean, it had its problems in that especially as GW always does, the card-based expansions were underprinted and then bought up and resold at ridiculous markups. And a lot
Blackstone
of
Fortress did that in kind of like the zenith of the scalping period for Games Workshop products.
And a lot of the diehards, like I mean the Amble, like you couldn't get it. Like if you didn't get it sort of pretty close to when it came out, or get lucky finding one in a dusty corner in some local game store, you didn't get one. And so that was our previous run.
Yes.
So now we've got Curse City, which when they announced it way back, I could not contain my excitement because it's like Gothic City, skeletons, Halloweeny time. Let's go. And I feel like there's sort of a balance between like I can't decide how much of this is like because they certainly had production problems. And that is 1,000% understandable. But now I'm coming to the point of how much of it was production problems and how much of it is, well, let's try doing things a little differently and see how that goes. So instead of how much of it was, let's scrape together what we can with what we've got and put out these expansions without any miniatures and that'll be a thing. And how much of it was a conscientious, let's not put miniatures in the box and produce them separately. And I don't know what the answer is.
My thought is that Curse City was meant to be another Blackstone Fortress fantasy side or Age of Sigmar side.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out for pandemic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And low, like their initial offering was obviously insufficient. Like there was a lot of problems to it, but I also think that because one of the issues actually with Blackstone Fortress is as cool as it ran way too long.
Okay.
Like the whole point of Warhammer Quest is we're going to have these sets, and we're going to go back and forth between 40K and Age of Sigmar.
Right.
But when they first started, and let's start with Blackstone Fortress. for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were gearing up to do as much with Cursed City as they did with Blackstone Fortress in the first place. Then they got pandemicked,
Yeah.
and now they're probably and let's not forget, like, Age of Sigmar is doing well
Oh,
for
yeah.
Games Workshop.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
doing really well.
Yep.
But it is not doing 40K well.
Right.
Like, it is still like 40K is still the Dodge Caravan they take to bring the kids to soccer. And Age of
Yep.
Sigmar is is the convertible they take out on the weekend. One of them
Right.
is just seeing more mileage.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
So, like, love both cars. They're not going to get rid of any of them anytime soon. But if you're going to put gas in one of them more than the other, is going to be 40K.
Yeah.
So they're probably itching to get back to 40K as a Warhammer Quest thing. Probably not for as long a period as Blackstone Fortress. At least I hope not. But I mean, it's time. Like, Cursed City didn't, I don't want to say failed, but Cursed City was cursed.
It was
cursed and didn't get what it deserved. But it needs to move over and let the 40K Warhammer Quest happen, so we can get back to an Age of Sigmar Warhammer Quest in a year and a half, 2 years.
So one of the interesting things is that thought for sure that I can't remember her name. I think her name's Belladama something. But she's like a werewolf lady that rides a wolf.
And
she
was cool.
She's in that like batch of releases with the Rat King and Radikar and all of them that came out for Sigmar, and she's not in the expansion. And that was kind of like we all assumed. Like, that was my excuse to get her. And they have not given that to me. And that's a little disappointing. So for this one, you'll need a White King, a Necromancer, a unit of Graveguard, Vargeists, and Direwolves. So yeah. The other interesting thing is you do need both the base game and Night Wars for this one.
I have an opinion about sequels.
Yeah, that's tough. Like, I don't remember. Like, all my Blackstone expansions are still wrapped in plastic, so I don't actually know how many. Like, if you need to build on them.
Not from my understanding. Like, each of the expansions kind of work independently, but I have not actually played. Yeah. So take this with a huge chunk of salt.
Yeah.
I'm mostly interested in painting the figs, because this is the problem. Like, I have friends like, "Oh, when are we playing Blackstone Fortress?" Well, when I'm done painting the figs.
When I've painted them all to display quality.
Well, they're not display quality, but I am trying to do a good job of them anyways. Yeah. I should get back into them, but I've got so much. Anyways, the thing is, I don't think that Games Workshop is necessarily shortchanging Cursed City. I think, though, that they have other things on the schedule that they need to get to. And maybe this is why they're kind of like jumping the gun on certain things and cutting corners and not doing model releases with everything. And maybe they've modified some of the lore. Who knows? Like, I don't know how much Cursed City moves the lore of AOS forward. Maybe not at all. I have no idea.
Right.
So I don't know how much they're tied to getting this done or not.
Right. I think the box games are usually pretty standalone-y, right? Like, I mean, they take place in little pockets.
Usually, but keep in mind that we're also looking at this, like, we're looking at a Games Workshop compared to when Cursed City came out. Right now, they seem to be wanting to tie everything together. It's something we discussed last week. Like, Underworlds is in Narwood is on Gur, I think, or whatever.
Yep.
And in the same thing that we're seeing a lot, like 40K is getting expansions that's going to take advantage of kill teams, battlefield terrain, because it's all happening in a Space Hulk.
Yeah.
So maybe they need to get Cursed City out of the way so that they can announce Warhammer Quest Space Hulk.
So that was gonna be sort of my last question. What are your hopes for going back to the 40K side of Warhammer Quest?
Well, Warhammer Quest and 40K has been about exploring gigantic spaceships. We've done a Blackstone Fortress, And keeping with the theme, doing Warhammer quests inside of a Space Hulk isn't that's not that far out. It's something that could be done, and it's a good place to introduce some cool figs like Hruds.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just a box that where you get one of those big weirdos but cooler, and then like maybe a dozen little space rats?
The other interesting...
I've always imagined a Rud as being just vermin on spaceships.
Yeah. We do also have Darktide coming out next month. And I wouldn't be upset if it was a little bit of that. I know that they mostly fight chaos right now, but as we've seen with like Vermintide, that can change.
True.
That's actually the Warhammer quest I want. I want Warhammer quest Vermintide with just like Skaven and stuff.
Maybe one day. We haven't seen that many tie-ins between what Games Workshop does with their games and what they license out to video games.
Right.
Not since the Blood Ravens, and oh boy, did they make noise back in the day about no, we're really doing the chapter from the video game in our lore. Like we're working with the company. That was a huge deal because that was not how Games Workshop licensed back in the day.
Right.
Back in the days, like you're renting the IP from us and we do not talk anymore.
They've been doing a lot better about that, though.
They have it. I think when they did the Blood Raven things for Dawn of War, and then when they worked a little bit on Fire Warrior, they worked a little bit most closely with the developers.
Yep.
I don't know how much they work with Fat Shark. Hopefully a lot.
Yeah, it seems like it, because Fat Shark seems to have a pretty good idea of what they're doing.
Fat Shark, they look like fans.
Yeah,
I think they're fans.
They do. If you are a fan, if you are a Vermintide 2 player, the Halloween event with all the Nurglings is happening right now. So go play. It'll be good. In the meantime, I think that about wraps it up for this week. All of our social media information is in the description. And until next week, happy hobbying. Materials shown in this video are provided fully or in part by Games Workshop for promotional purposes. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping us a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching.